Today, I'd like to share with you 4 things that I got wrong as a young leader. I'm a strong proponent of vicarious learning, and much of what I do in working with leaders is not trying to be an expert or a know it all. It's more coming from the lessons I've learned by discovering areas that I didn't do well and needed to improve, or things that I just got wrong and I needed to learn from. And so today I want to take a moment and share with you 4 things that I got wrong. Now here's the first one. The first thing that I know was a notion and a thought process in my head that probably exists in others was that in order to be a good leader, I had to know everything. I know that's not really a thing. That's one of the reasons it was wrong, but it was a notion I had. I felt to be a qualified, good leader, I had to have all the answers. I had to know everything. And that would be what would cause people to follow my leadership. Well, that was wrong. One, it's not possible to know everything. And as I've said in other videos, there's no finish line for leaders as far as learning, growth, and improvement. So that's the first thing wrong about that notion. The other is that no one likes a know-it-all. Think back to people who answered everything you added or you suggested with, I know, I know, I know. Yeah, that's annoying. In fact, we all kind of intuitively understand that no one can know it all. And so it's not really an expectation that we put on leaders. Now, I do think leaders should be honest. I think that we should be open and we should become great at asking good questions and that we should stay learners for the duration of our time as leaders. It's always better, I think, to just simply say, if someone asks you something and you don't know, it's better to say, I don't know, but let me look into that for you. Or even better, as it leads into the second thing that I got wrong, maybe say, I don't know. Let's find out together. Here's the second thing that I got wrong as a leader. Me, personally, I have to figure everything out. That is not going to work. One, that would be exhausting. If I have to solve every problem, it's all on me, then I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to burn out. The other thing is that is not scalable. Maybe in the early days of being self-employed, maybe you are the only person around that can solve problems, so you have to do it, but that's not scalable. If you become the person who answers every question and solves every problem, you're actually doing a great disservice to your organization, your company, or your team. You need to be a leader that trains your team to be problem solvers. And that will not happen if you're solving every problem. Now, we've all heard the statement, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. The problem with that is that you haven't trained anybody to come up with solutions, so you're going to struggle regardless. It's important that we recognize that I understand the sentiment, and if you are part of a team, rather than bombarding your leader with problems, it's probably wise and to your benefit to consider what some options or possible solutions are and bring those. That's going to go a little better. But as the leader, someone brings you a problem. Now, the first thing you need to ascertain is it a problem? Help them give you the clear picture so that you understand whether or not this is an actual problem. Once you do and say, yep, that's a problem, the next thing to do would be to say, what do you think we should do? Or what suggestions do you have of how we might approach this? Doing this engages that person into the process of problem solving. And over time, as you do this as a leader, they're going to be more equipped to bring you solutions and not just statements of problems. And they're going to be able to solve problems before they have to be brought to you to start with. So mistaken notion, what I got wrong, number 2, I have to figure everything out. I'm going to figure some things out. There are going to be things through my experience and time on task that I'm going to know how to do, and I might be able to do it. But I don't want to relieve the team or organization of the burden of being problem solvers by just solving everything myself. That's exhausting and it's not scalable. Here's the third thing that I got wrong, and that was the belief that this should get easy. If you've been leading for any length of time, you know that easy is not really a thing when it comes to leadership. Now, will some things become easier? Yes. So will some things become less difficult? Yes. But if you think that being a leader is just going to come easy, like me, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. It's going to be challenging. There are going to be things. In fact, growth and learning all require challenges. It's part of the process of how we grow and develop. And if there truly is no finish line for leaders, then no, this is never going to get easy. It's always going to stretch us. It's always going to be an opportunity for growth as we lean into the challenges that we face in everyday life in business. And I think that it's important that I share this with you because some of you out there have these thought processes and they are whipping you. They are defeating you and you're critiquing yourself with an unfair scale. It's a misunderstanding of what leadership really is. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to figure everything out. And just because it's not easy doesn't mean you're not a good leader. When I accepted the fact that I was going to have to continue to stretch and learn and grow and improve, that was significant for me. I stopped believing that, this ought to be easy. There are some elements of conversations that must be had that never become easy. They're just necessary. You might become more skillful in doing them, but they're not easy. Here's a fourth thing I got wrong, and I hope by sharing with you can benefit you as a leader. And that is that I had the mindset that failure was not an option. Maybe you feel that way. Leaders don't fail. Good leaders don't fail. That is just not true. In fact, often failure is just part of the process of us developing and becoming better leaders. Failure is not something to be afraid of. It's just something to learn from. Every successful entrepreneur and leader that I have known views failure as input, feedback. It's not an identity. It doesn't affect their self-image. Good leaders do learn to fail quickly, though. The longer you wait to admit that you're wrong or that something isn't working, the higher the price there is going to be for it. It's going to cost you more. So as leaders develop and grow, we learn to identify things that aren't working and quickly be able to say, that's not working. What do we do instead? Failure not being an option is just wrong. Failure is always an option. And you're going to discover that it often with some frequency. But it's part of the learning process. It's part of how we grow. We're not going to look for failure, but we're going to accept the fact that failures occur. And we're going to fail quickly. We're going to learn our lessons. And we're going to move forward. I hope you listening today find this helpful. These are just, I could probably come up with many more in this list, but these are 4 key things that I know I got wrong. And until I was able to dispel these thought processes and notions and expectations on myself, those things were used against me by myself. I became very critical and I was not able to see myself as a good leader because these 4 things were nagging me. Exposing them set me free to help me become a much better leader. And I hope that by watching this video today and hearing them will help you do the same.